and I'm the head of marketing at Closed. I'm joined today by Manny from Sumo Logic. Hi, Manny.
Hi.
Can you tell me a little bit about your role?
Sure. I'm the Director of Competitive Intel at Sumo Logic, mostly dealing with competitive intelligence as well as win-loss.
Okay, great. So when you first launched your program, can you tell us what the goals were for your CI program and for win-loss?
So the goals initially were basically just get customer interviews. That was the big kind of gaping hole of getting that 360 view of what we needed to get in terms of the win-loss. So we reached out to Close because I remember running into you guys at one of your events. And so reached out to Close, and that was kind of the goal, is just to get that win-loss interviews started.
And during those customer interviews, what were you hoping to learn?
We're trying to understand the sales process, where we're losing, why we're losing, and hear that directly from the customers rather from the salespeople. We had a good pulse on what salespeople were saying. We didn't have a good pulse on what the customers were saying. So that was what we're looking to kind of fill that gap.
Yes, that's common. I think we hear that a lot, that the feedback from the sales team doesn't necessarily match the buyer experience, and
Sure.
It's really hard to figure out what's going on when the deal is actually taking place.
And we initially tried to do this in-house. So we were responsible for reaching out to the customers. It wasn't as useful because it was kind of a bias in terms of the questions we were asking, in terms of the people we're inviting. They were more friendly. So having a third party actually do this was way more insightful for us.
Yes, that makes total sense. People are more willing to talk to a third party because it feels like they're more neutral.
Yes.
and there's less bias. Can you tell me how Closed became ingrained in your organization across the journey?
Sure. Initially started off kind of a small kind of pilot program. I think we initially had 10 interviews kind of going. It was initially just for our internal marketing team, and our people would kind of sprinkle these interviews out and kind of spread them out. But there was a huge interest in these. And so as we started to grow more in terms of getting more interviews, we've opened up the platform for everyone. So not just sales, but now it's ingrained into the marketing product team as well as executive teams. So they're all reading the interviews. They all have access to the platform. And that's how it's kind of spread throughout Sumo Logic.
Yes, you've given access to everybody,
Correct.
Which allows them to get in and then digest the insights
Yes.
on their own terms.
On their own terms, yes, and not just us hand feeding these, like, read this interview. This is basically them going into the platform, them doing cuts. Also very helpful for our sales team when they're knowing that they're going against a competitor. They can select the competitor, why we win, why we lose, and those are served up to them immediately. So that's super helpful for them.
Did you need to enable your teams on how to do that?
Yes, so we've had lots of enablements. We've reached out to Close. They made videos for us, for our sales team, specifically for our sales team, on how they use Closed internally, and then training for everyone else. So it's been a learning process for everyone, but the platform is super easy to use, and so there's not really a lot of training. It's basically showing what the platform can do and then just letting them go at it.
Did you encounter obstacles or challenges when you first launched the program?
Initially, from our sales team, we got a little bit of pushback. It was kind of that big brother of them looking into us, looking into them in terms of the sales process. But once they understood that it was a learning tool versus a checking-in tool, they kind of opened up to the idea a lot better for us. So that was kind of the initial kind of feedback. But once they learned the power of the platform, how they can actually use it, they've been pretty good about that.
Okay, yeah, the sales team was afraid that they're going to be under the microscope
Sure,
then
of course.
be on the receiving end of any negative feedback.
Correct.
Yes, I think that's also really common.
Yeah.
And how has win-loss feedback through Closed helped you to better understand your prospects or your customers?
It's been invaluable to actually get this information directly from the customer's mouth. It kind of gives us that 360 view. We do our own internal sales calls with the sales, and then matching that up with the customer is really, really valuable for us. It just gives us a full 360 view of what customers are saying, what they feel, and then we match that with what our salespeople are saying, and so it just gives us a more complete view of what the customers are saying.
And we've talked about sales using the feedback. To other teams at Sumo Logic use the insights and then take action on them?
Correct. So we use tagging in our Closed interviews. So anything product related, we tag that, and our product team actually goes in there, and they're actually able to justify the spend that they do, the resources that they allocate for UI improvements, for APIs. So that actually helps justify that. We also do it. Our marketing team actually uses it pretty heavily as well. So they look to see what messages are resonating with customers. And so they use that to offset a lot of the messaging that they do on their website in terms of all of the collateral that we build. So everyone uses it.
Can you share a tangible example of where your win-loss feedback from closed made an impact to the business?
So at Sumo, there's churn obviously with some of our customers. We left those interviews for our customer success managers to do. We found out they really weren't doing the in-depth interviews, so we asked them if we can have closed reach out to these churned customers. And so now we're actually using closed to actually interview why people are leaving, getting that feedback that they weren't giving to our customer success folks. And now we're using that to actually drive change in terms of the way that we behave with current customers to make sure that they don't churn.
That's a great use of using the qualitative feedback.
Yeah.
And so your CS team is another stakeholder that
Correct.
digests that.
And it was super easy for them. Everything's all set up already. So it was just sending names, and then closed people were actually do that. I think they were able to start doing interviews within a week of us sending the names to them.
Okay, and that's your program manager.
That's our program manager.
Who I assume is familiar with Sumo Logic.
Correct.
Your specific, I think you had shared with me that you have some specific requests that your program manager is able to deliver just for you because he knows your account.
And that's the huge thing about Close. We've got an account manager that is almost a Sumo Logic employee. He knows the product. He knows how to ask the questions. He knows all our competitors. So when he hears these keywords, he can steer the conversation, dive a little bit deeper, and so the conversations are really impactful. And so I think that's what everyone really likes about these conversations. They're structured but still free flow at the same time. So if he hears something about UI, he goes, what about the UI? So it's not just a general comment. He dives into its particulars. And so that's what our product team really loves about it. That's what our sales team really likes about it as well. So it's invaluable to have a account manager that knows the product, knows your customers, knows the competitive landscape, so he's able to drive these conversations.
That's great to hear. I think that's something that we're really proud of at Closed, and some people when starting a win-loss program don't realize how much work goes into the interview guide, which is built for your business and ensures we ask the right questions. But then there's the other piece that you mentioned, it's being adaptive and
Correct.
asking probing questions to get a layer deeper so you actually get the insights you want and not just generic
Yeah.
feedback.
When we were looking at the win-loss program and doing interviews, we had the two different ways. We can do kind of a mass kind of shoot and where they just send out interviews, it's all automated, or we can have a little bit, the customized ones, do a little bit less, but more in-depth, and we decided to do the more in-depth and go with close versus kind of just like the spray and pray approach.
Yep, makes sense, and you're getting, I assume, richer feedback.
Richer
from that
feedback,
that you
yeah.
can take action
Yeah,
on.
for sure.
And how have you used feedback to influence strategic decisions at Sumo Logic?
Sure. So just recently, we relaunched a new pricing model, and so we had Hiva, our account manager, actually meet with our pricing analyst, and so he gave him the whole background of how the new pricing model actually works. And so we wanted some feedback on what customers thought about this, as well as prospects. And so that feedback that we got, we fed it directly to our pricing analysis team, and they were able to take that feedback and kind of make tweaks based upon the feedback that we're getting, as well as messaging for our sales team to how to actually message this appropriately to make sure that the customers would understand our new pricing model.
I love that. I think pricing and packaging is particularly tricky because you don't want to show your cards to a prospect
Right.
too early. But if you have, again, a neutral third party that can ask those questions for you, then you get the candid feedback
Correct.
you need without showing your cards too early in the deal.
And someone that knows how the pricing model works, because so that was probably the latest one that we did, and was more about pricing. So our pricing guys loved that feedback. They're like, oh, okay, this is fantastic. We're able to take that feedback, make some tweaks, as well as train our sales folks on how to message that correctly, because everyone was messaging a little bit different because it was a new product, so people were trying different ways to actually message that, and so we found out what was working and what wasn't working, and were able to train our sales folks on that.
Okay, so influence both the actual pricing and packaging and then the
Correct.
sales training
Correct.
for them to deliver.
Yeah.
That's
It was great.
That's a great use case. I like that one. What advice do you have for somebody who is in the early stages of learning about win loss or thinking about launching their own program? What advice would you give to them?
Like I said, we initially tried to do it in-house. It's way more time-consuming than you would actually think. Scheduling, doing the interviews, consolidating all that data into a platform that you can actually use, so they can try. But it's, like I said, we tried to do it on our own, realized that it was way more work. We needed a third party to actually do that. So that would be my advice, is you can try it on your own, but definitely you'll need kind of a third party. And that third party is much more useful because of the feedback that you're getting from an unbiased person actually doing the interview.
And what advice would you give to other CI leaders who are trying to get the most out of their programs?
I think probably the best feedback is to give is open up the platform to everyone. Initially, it was limited to a few select people, and we would show these interviews to the executives or sales leaders. Once we realized the value of these interviews, we opened it up to the entire employee base. So anyone with a Sumo Logic email address can actually access that. And we found that people are using it in many different ways. Our customer success folks, our sales folks, our product team, they all want different slices of the data, and with the platform they're able to do it themselves and self-serve themselves. It makes my job easier, and they're actually able to use the platform in the way that suits them best.
I love that. I think we've learned that democratizing those insights helps to get buy-in across the organization.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us
No worries.
today, Manny. I really appreciated our conversation.
Of course.